And did you know that 2.6% of pop music producers are women? But that doesn't mean that women in music production don't exist. In fact, it's quite the opposite. The Creator Suite podcast reveals the brilliance and boldness of women DJs, producers, and audio engineers while diving deep in discussions around music industry hot topics and premier technology. So gear up to have both sides of your brain stimulated as we come together to listen, learn, and harness our power.
How you guys doing? My name is Josie Carr. I'm an artist, entrepreneur, producer, and educator.
Hey everyone, I'm Karen Keeves and I am a music tech marketer.
Hey, I'm Abita Austin and I'm the founder of the Creator Suite.
You're now tuned in to the Creator Suite podcast.
Hey, welcome everyone to the Creator Suite podcast. We're so excited for our next episode today. We have a very special guest, but before we dive in, let's give it a little bit of an intro. So as you all know, we're living in an unprecedented time where COVID has forced many of us in music production to change our approach in finding opportunities. The live music scene has come to a screeching halt. Day-to-day operations at studios face restrictions, and a lack of in-person interactions have put limitations on creative collaboration and networking. Today, we're chatting with Laura Escudé. Based in Los Angeles, Laura is an artist, producer, innovator, entrepreneur, and live show designer. Formerly known as A-Lux, Laura Escudé is a future classical artist blending music, tech, and consciousness. Escudé's music synthesizes her skills as a classically trained violinist and her technical prowess as an avant-garde electronic producer. In addition to her music, because that's not all it, Laura Escudé is the creator of the Transmute Academy, the founder of Electronic Creatives, and she's the first person to ever become an Ableton Certified Trainer back in 2008. Some of her career highlights include designing shows for Kanye West and Jay-Z, opening for Miguel on his 2015 Wildheart tour, building a thriving international business populated by top-tier professionals, and developing premier educational programs accessed around the globe. With a deep understanding of complex technology, a profound passion for music and art, Escudé is well-versed in forging a music production career from an entrepreneurial approach. It is with great pleasure and excitement that we welcome to the podcast today, Laura Escudé.
Hey. Welcome.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, thanks so much for having me. This is such an honor.
Of course.
Pleasure.
And we're so excited to have you here today. We really feel like a lot of our listeners have a lot to learn from your journey in your career, and we're definitely excited to dive in.
Yay, me too. So excited to share.
We'll start. We've got a few questions for you, and we'll kind of, keep this pretty casual. And Josie and Abita will be diving in with their little added questions and things that they might want you to expand on. But let's start at the beginning. So tell us, how did you actually start your music production career? What was that first step for you?
So I was a classical violinist all throughout my childhood, played in orchestras, had no knowledge of music production, electronic music, really wasn't into technology. I'll date myself a little bit, but the most technology that I ever used was taping from tape to tape. I would tape Casey Kasem's top 40, and I would tape the songs that I liked from the top 40 from one tape to another tape. And that was as technical as I got. And then when I got to college, I just started hanging around with different people and being exposed to different things. And I discovered the electronic music scene because my best friend's boyfriend was a DJ, and they said, come to this rave with us. And I was like, no, I don't do that. I don't even know what that is. Why would I go to a rave? So I ended up finally going, and just my mind was blown. It was so inclusive. Everyone was dancing. It was like, just this energy that I'd never felt before with the classical music scene that I'd been in. And I just knew I have to get into this. Like, I have to learn how to do this. And I didn't know what I wanted to do at that time. So I just started out playing violin over DJ's music. And actually the first genre that I tried to play over was drum and bass, which is really, really hard because it's so fast. But I loved drum and bass at that time. I was trying to play over drum and bass. I started recording violin on productions by different producers. I started booking acts at this club in town. I started really just getting into the scene and the culture. And one of the artists that we booked was this band called Smoke. And I really didn't know that much about them. But when they came in, I got introduced to them and I realized, oh my gosh, this is George Clinton's son. Like, this is crazy. Like, I didn't even know who I was booking. So I just ended up like getting in the studio with them and hanging out with them and just like looking behind, lurking in the shadows in the corners, like, what are they doing? I have no idea. And then eventually like asking them, hey, can you show me how to make stuff? Because I started like producing, from the back of the room, like, hey, I got an idea. And then it was like, well, but I want to get my own ideas out. I want to learn how to, put my own ideas into the computer and play my violin and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of how, I got started, really just by chance, just fell into it.
I love that. And what would you say was your first sort of big break, like that was like cemented you in that world?
There's so many throughout the journey. I guess that one was really big for me just because I was, got to be in the room with all these professionals, all of a sudden, and I really didn't know what I was doing at that time. So that was really great. I think, meeting people along the way. I met a friend a couple of years later who really helped me like get started with production and, I was trying to figure it all out myself. And he was like, hey, let me show you some stuff. And, that was great. He was a mentor. Then a couple of years later, I moved to LA and got a job working in tech support at this company called M Audio. And so that was kind of like another big break. And then from there, worked at Ableton. That was another big break. And from there, I became certified. And then from there, started working on all these shows with the different artists. So it's just kind of like, a progression of just big things that have happened throughout my career. And, every single time something big happened, I had doubts, I was like, am I ready for this? Do I know how to do that? Like, am I ready to move to Vegas and work on Cirque du Soleil's production when I literally have never done anything like this before? Okay, sure. So I just did. And I just kept saying yes. And, opportunities kept presenting themselves. And I'm just very thankful and blessed to have been around such amazing people throughout my career as well.
I love that. It's almost like you kind of just ran with it. And with each step, new opportunities opened up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you are the founder of Electronic Creatives. And for everybody tuning in, it's an LA-based worldwide team of playback engineers, audio show programmers, musical directors, and music producers. Share with us what led to you establishing this team, and can you tell us more about it?
Absolutely. Yeah. So Electronic Creatives, I call it EC for short. I started it probably the first iteration in 2008. I was doing a lot of educational stuff back then. I'd just become a certified trainer. I was sort of like the go-to person for Ableton Live stuff in the LA area. And then I started working on productions and shows. Like I mentioned, I worked with Cirque du Soleil. And then after that, started touring with Kanye, who I worked with for about 7 years and did all of his live show stuff and, all different artists. And I got really busy. I got calls for a lot of gigs at that time, and I really just didn't want to give up the gigs. I was like, oh man, if I could clone myself, I could do this gig with The Weeknd. Yeah, or if I could clone myself, I could do this gig with, whoever. So, actually The Weeknd is a really good example. The Weeknd was a really young artist at the time, and, his management came to me and said, hey, can you, work on this show? And I said, well, I personally can't because I'm busy with Kanye, but I have this perfect person that I think would be great for that. So I trained someone that I knew, a friend of mine, put him on, just kept training people and putting them on throughout the years. And it just started out kind of like me just wanting to clone myself and give other people opportunities. And then it just kind of built into a business from there.
It was all organic. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Laura, can you break down live show designer? What are you exactly controlling in a show? Karen mentioned playback engineers. Some of our guests might not audience might not know what that is. I'm curious, like, what are you controlling in that Kanye show?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really different for every single artist. So just to kind of break it down a little bit. So, music playback, music programming, live show design, those are all sort of words, it depends on kind of what role you're doing. With different artists, I've been more of a designer where I'm working with them on, setting up their controllers, setting up their sounds, creating the music with them, just working on every aspect of how they, play the music live on stage. An example of that is Porter Robinson. He had a one-person show. I worked with him to help develop all of those aspects for his show. Someone like Kanye doesn't necessarily want to know how to use Ableton, or he's not in the trenches like we are every day, but he's like, hey, this is my vision, this is what I want, I need you to make it happen. So with artists like him and Miguel and shows like American Idol, that kind of stuff, that would be more of like music programming and playback engineering. So the programming side is just basically making anything that they want happen. Okay, I got this idea. I want to make, a rock version of this track tonight, or I want to slow this song down, or I want to segue this song from this song, or, I want to add some sound effects in, or Drake just showed up. We got to like take Drake's verse out of here because he's going to rap over it, or whoever else just showed up. I mean, any random person could show up at any time. So you got to be like ready with all the different versions of the songs just in case,
Wow.
Basically you're just like the keeper of all the music, making sure that it sounds right night after night, making sure that, the artist, the musical director, whoever I'm working with is satisfied and pleased, making sure the band hears everything the way that they want it to. So really the way that, artists come into needing playback is because they get to a certain level, and, you oftentimes see a DJ on stage with an artist, right? Up until a certain level, it's the rapper, it's the singer, it's, the artist and a DJ and potentially band, if they've got the funds for a band, which a lot of artists that are just coming up don't. Mm-hmm. But once they get to a certain place, like for example, Logic is, one of the artists that I've worked with and helped transition his music from the DJ style to playback. And they were just like, we know that we need this, and we're not quite sure why, but we're going to hire you and have you tell us how and why we need this. And so it was really just like illuminating for them, because all of a sudden they're like, okay, so I want to hear my backing vocals a little bit louder, or I want to hear this bass louder, or I want to take, the vocals out of this part, or I want to like loop this section and just vibe over it with the band, or, any of that stuff that they want to do on the fly, they can do. But when everything's baked into what we call a 2-track that a DJ is just playing, you don't have that flexibility. You can't make all of those edits. You can't make changes. Whoever's mixing the show can't mix the bass separately from the rest of the tracks. And, when you get to that level, you just really want that bass separate, you want it to bang, you want whoever's mixing front of house to be able to like separate that and just like really have it banging. So that's kind of like what the why artists start to use playback. Mm-hmm. And then the programming part is the editing and the programming of it. And then some people are just playback engineers. I would do both. So sometimes sometimes people are just like, on stage or off to the side of the stage, and they're just triggering the tracks that someone else has programmed. Most of the time I would just be doing all of it, or sometimes on stage, like in the case with Miguel, I was in his band DJing his tracks, doing the playback from the stage, also opening for him. So it's really just like kind of different in every scenario. And then artists like Kanye, I also did his vocal effects. So it would be his like auto tune and delays and distortion and pitch shifting and all that kind of stuff. So in the moment when we'd be performing, I would just turn on different effects and in real time be like jamming with him, like improvising with him. Some things were the same every night, but then some things were not. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of like a, symbiotic relationship where sometimes I'd turn something on and he would hear it and be like, oh, oh, that delay's on. Now I can like scream and it's going to get really big and it's going to go crazy. Or he would ask me for stuff on stage, like, hey, Laura, I want the deep voice, which meant like the pitch shift. So I would like turn that on and, he would sound like a monster or something. So other things that playback engineer and programmers do are like drum sounds and keyboard sounds. So if you have a MIDI controller on stage, you want all those sounds to be able to change song to song, then we are responsible for that as well. So kind of like runs the gamut. And then,
wow,
artists like Porter Robinson that I mentioned, they're like a one-person show and they're performing on stage themselves. And so it's up to me and people like me to help them like create the show that they want. And so that's more of like a design kind of aspect.
So I would say the training for that, you had to have had a lot of training for that because you are a classical musician, right? How did the tech side come into your career?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really have any training, to be honest. I kind of just figured it out along the way. Like I was saying earlier, just like every opportunity, kind of just presented itself. So, I think it's like a combination of being able to figure things out on the fly and very quickly, and also like good communication and being a person that other people want to work with and, all that kind of stuff like wrapped together. And I think the most important thing is just being able to figure it out on the fly and being musical. Like a lot of people that try to come and do this job, they're like, they don't really know where the chorus is, or they don't hear the little nuances of like, oh, you just cut that tail of that reverb and it sounds weird now because they don't hear it, right? So for me, I think I just had kind of like a couple of the different things that you need to do this job where I was like, okay, that reverb tail, it needs to ring out. We can't stop it right away because that's just going to sound bad. So, yeah.
And how was it? How were you able to? Because I mean, Kanye and the Weeknd and all these guys are like really huge superstars. They're superstars.
Yeah.
How were you able to make that connection? I mean, that's a pretty big deal.
I would say so.
I don't know. I think when I worked at Ableton, this was back in 2007, 2008. I kind of, I'd been doing tech support at M-Audio. M-Audio was distributing Ableton. I got really close with the company, started working for the company. It was at that time, the economy tanked. And, I always tell people my story, like I got laid off. And, just to show people that like you can go really far, even after things that, that you consider to be bad or like not welcome come to you. And at first I was really bummed. I was like, I love this company. I don't want to do anything else. And then it was like, well, what do I do now? I don't want to just go work for another company. So I'm just going to like do my own thing now. And I think then, I kind of made the decision, like, I'm going to try some new things. I don't know what they are. And then things just started to come to me, like because I was certified, because I'd gotten a name, because I was in LA hustling, going to all the, studios and going to all the events, going to all the shows. I think, my name just sort of became synonymous with like Ableton Live and playback. And, it was really just the relationships that I had, like a guy that worked at this store, West LA Music, which is like a local version of like Sam Ash or Guitar Center. He hit me up and he said, hey, I've got this guy, he's Kanye West's engineer. Like, do you want to, he needs Ableton help. Do you want to go work with him? And that's kind of like how that started. And it was just literally like, hey, can you go help this person? And then go help the person. And then they're like, well, you just do it because you actually know what you're doing. And I am like more of a studio person. And I think that's also the thing. Like I was willing to like go on the road and I was willing to be like on tour and do the shows. And a lot of like studio engineers, they don't like that stress and pressure because it is a lot of pressure. It is a lot of stress. They want to be in the studio. They want to be, making the beats or like, recording the vocals or whatever, but they don't want to like have that pressure and that stress of like the night to night, like going to a different venue, like stuff not working, people throwing curveballs, like you changing the set list, 2 minutes before the show, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah.
I just go off on tangents, so
No.
No, it's actually very interesting, you know, and I think
Thanks.
the listeners will definitely appreciate, you know, just understanding what it takes, you know, to get to that level, and it helps. So
yeah,
thank you. Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I didn't know this existed when I started, you know, so I think this is like a big aha. It will be a big aha for many people listening.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know it either. I just fell into it, really. I mean, I was a performer producer, just like a lot of your audience, and, you know, just kind of got these opportunities, you know, and just kept trying not to get fired.
I hear that.
I mean, also too, when you work with young creatives, they think that there's like a manual that you can follow. Like, if I
know.
do this, this is gonna
Yeah.
work. You know, so to see someone that's in it and is doing it and has a story to tell is very helpful, because I work with a lot of young creatives, and that's always the thing. Well, where do I go? How do I do it? And then once I do this, I'm 100% gonna have this wonderful career. You
Right.
know. But I tell them a lot of it has to do with networking, hustling,
Yeah.
and being prepared. You know, so
Yeah.
it's good to hear that from you. Fantastic.
Absolutely. You know, it is all about networking. I mean, I hate to say it, it's who you know. It kind of is, you know, it's like I was chill, but also proactive, you know, and there's like that kind of balance, you know, you can be a little too chill or you can be a little too proactive.
Right.
So like finding that balance and what works for you with people, you know, like I get people that hit me up all the time, and it's like certain people, you know, if they speak to me in, you know, the right way, then I'm like, okay, like, yeah, I've got time for you. But then it's like other people write, and it's just like they want something, you know, it's like you got to give and take, and, you know, you got to give and take. And like, I think I was really good at giving and taking. I gave so much to the community, you know, still, you know, I still continue to with like free workshops and masterclasses for these young creators and for people, you know, I've trained so many people. Like, yes, some of them I've hired and I've benefited financially from that. But most of the time it's not really financially, you know, it's not a financial reason. It's just like, just to build up the community, exactly what y'all are doing, you know, like that's why we do this. That's why I do this. That's why I've always done it. And that's why I created the Transmute Academy. And, you know, I probably can speak on that just like as a natural sort of transition. But, you know, I started the Master Track program with EC, which is for people to learn how to become playback engineers. And we did a couple of years of that and put people on huge tours like Ariana, Mariah Carey, you know, Lil Wayne, like you name it. So we had grown really big, pretty big. I mean, I wouldn't say like huge, but like 20 people or so. I'm like, what's really big? I don't know. Yeah. Big for me, you know, I'm like, all of a sudden I got this whole team, you know, it's great. But I saw like this, like place for me to help young creators in a way that was different, right? Like taking all my knowledge from that. And, you know, I'm an artist as well. And like, yes, I've worked with all these famous people and that's great and really cool. But like my passion is like creating and making music and performing myself. And a couple of years ago, I just made this decision. I went through kind of this tough time with my health. My body just completely broke down. You know, I'd been traveling too much, doing too much, pushing myself way too hard. I did a show with, you know, Iggy Azalea, Miguel, and Kanye in the span of 3 days in 3 different cities, you know, across the US. And my body was just like, no, like, no, you can't do this anymore.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I was in the hospital, got a lot of time to reflect.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, I want to like change the way that I live my life. And so I started that year, my Transmute retreat, which is just, you know, I wanted to show artists that you can bring in the self-care and the electronics and the music and the hustle and, you know, all that stuff together. And so that was like the first, you know, iteration of my Transmute series. And then I started the Transmute Accelerator, which is an online program for artists to learn how to take their live performances to the next level using technology and really just harness the power of technology. And so I started that at the beginning of 2019 and just had people from all over the world joining us because it was online. And then, so I kind of started the whole online business thing before COVID hit and before, this amazing year happened. And so when COVID hit in March, it was like, okay, well, I saw like every single tour that we had, in 1 or 2 days, just like completely gone. Wow. So I was like, well, I just got to, pivot over to this other business that I've been running concurrently, but just like focus more on it. And that's been really awesome because we've done a couple of sessions of it this year, and we actually are converting it into a brand new format in 2021. We've just launched the Transmute Academy. So we've got courses on there that are free. We've got some courses for artists that want to learn how to use Ableton Live to develop their live performances, live streaming stuff, all kinds of things. And we're converting the Accelerator into a year-long artist development program. So for artists that want to learn how to use technology and like get super in, and Josie you'd asked about how to kind of how do these people, young creatives, get in it? Well, I've invested a lot in myself over the years. Like I've invested a lot in coaching. I've invested, even when I couldn't afford, I remember the first time I paid for a coach, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the most expensive thing that I've ever done. Like, this is really scary. But
this was a
after
business
I did
coach?
that,
a business coach,
a business coach. Yeah. Business coach. But I've also invested in music, tech coach, it's just everything. And like I just got hooked on it. I was like, okay, like he really did help me like so much. And then since then I've just had so many other amazing coaches and mentors. So really, that's another key, I think, to my success, especially in the business aspect over the past, 5 years or so. If I didn't have the coaching and the mentors, I really would not be where I am today. And I'm just like super thankful that I didn't doubt myself, because I could have played small. And for a while I was like, oh, I just, this is a lot of money, because it can be, unless you find a mentor that's like, hey, I'm going to help you out, for free, which I don't know. For me, I just haven't found that personally.
I think that does make a lot of sense. I think that we're used to getting our education the conventional way, going to universities and all those type of things. And when you're young, that's what you think you're supposed to do. But there are so many artists and people like ourselves that are doing it. And we offer a different type of education that is a hands-on approach. I think that we have a clearer understanding because we're actually doing it. We're on the field that we can bring to a young creative that wants to be educated, So I think that's super fantastic. But I also wanted to ask you a question. You mentioned at the beginning when you were working, you wanted to clone yourself so you can be able to get more gigs and stuff like that. And then you decided, well, probably the best thing would be for me to kind of refer other people. Was it at any time that you feel like maybe, I'm referring someone, they might actually leave with my gig? What did you do to protect yourself from that not being the case so you can continue to grow?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't want to say like I'm magic, because I'm definitely not, but I have a sense of people, and I have a lot of people that have developed loyalty to me because of that, because of me putting them on, when they, like one of my friends put on, not the Weeknd gig, but another one, like he was in New York, not, really not making very much money, hustling, struggling. Like, then I was like, hey, I think you're perfect for this gig. And I held his hand, I sat with him. I made sure that he wasn't going to fail. I really put in the work to make sure that, and now he's still with them and he's open for them. And, this is like 8 years later.
Wow.
And so I think most of the people that I've brought into like my fold, so to speak, have been loyal to me. But then also, like the same guy that I mentioned, at a certain point, it's like, you've been doing this gig forever. This is your gig now. Like, you don't need me anymore. Like, go do the thing. Right. So it's like, I've been an incubator for people to get to a certain place. And sometimes they want to stay because, they like what I have to offer and what my community has to offer. And they like the support because, they're going to, if they have a problem, they get on the phone, they can call us and we can help them out. And when you're just a solo person, doing the gig, like you don't have that support. Mm-hmm. So, I think At first I was a little worried about that, but now I'm just like, you know what? I just leave it to the universe. Like whatever happens, I'm blessed. Like I got everything I need, if I help people out and then they leave and go do their own thing, that's totally fine. Like good on them. And, everyone I think just, has to make decisions for themselves and just decide, okay, is this still serving me? Is this not? Like I try to pay respects as much as possible to everyone that's helped me, but at a certain point, some people just got to kind of fly and move on or not,
Have you ever found it challenging to let go a little and trust other people?
Oh, yeah.
I think about that all the time. It's like, this is your baby. You know how things run, step A to Z. How do you, what is that like for you? Because I think a lot of us likely struggle with entrusting other people.
For sure. Oh my gosh. I've had a lot of that, the struggle. And, sometimes like it's gotten to the point where I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I don't want to the responsibility is a lot, and that's why like when COVID hit, to be honest, I wasn't all that mad at it. Like, yeah, in a way I was, but I was also like, oh, I don't have this responsibility right now. And that actually feels good. Just because as a creative, like I'm always looking for like, my right hand person that's not a creative that can just run the thing, but they can never like run it as well as I can or the way that I want it to be run. So that's like always the challenge because I got to be like, not micromanaging, but managing and just making sure that everyone's doing what they're doing. And I just kind of realized like, oh, that's not my calling. Like, that's not why I'm here. Like, yes, it's, I'm great at building community. I'm good at putting all these good people in a room and like training them, whatever. But then when it comes to like the responsibility and like the management of that, it's not my favorite thing. So, I have found good team. Like I'm so thankful for my team and just have, invested a lot also in team and putting, getting the right butts in the seats, as they say, and all that. And, I've got an amazing team now, for my personal brand, which has been my focus during COVID. But yeah, it is really hard. I mean, people have messed up, and it comes down on me. It's like, I get the call and if they get fired, which doesn't happen a whole lot, but it has happened. And I just feel like terrible. I feel like it's me. I let them down. I let these clients down. These are huge clients, like there's no room for mistakes or error. So when that's happened in the past, it really has been devastating to me, but I kind of learned how to, process it and move on. And sometimes I hire those people again if they learn their lesson. If not, like I have to let them go.
Yeah. I feel like it's a professional challenge that many of us are faced as we move forward.
Especially, entrepreneurs, like we're in charge, there's no one else like it's going to take the fall. Yeah.
I want to take a second to pivot a little. And the three of us are actually just talking about what a huge milestone this must have been for you. So you are the first person to become and I want to emphasize person here, to become a certified Ableton trainer. And this happened back in 2008. Mm-hmm. How did that come to fruition and what impact? It sounds like it's had a huge impact, but what impact has that had on your career?
Yeah. So kind of going back to the story when I got laid off, right? So I worked there for a year. I was the top salesperson that month. I remember my boss gave me a call and he said, hey, we're restructuring the company. Like, we're going to have to lay you off. I'm really sorry. And I was just, what? I'm like devastated, like this is like my spot. Like, I love this. And they said, well, because we're going to, we're just restructuring the company, we're developing this certification program. And I had been helping to develop it at that point, but I didn't realize that meant that like my job was going away. But I get it now because they just restructured everything and created this certification program where they would certify people and these people would become their ambassadors, right? So they didn't need me. I mean, they still would hire me. Like I, was the lead certification person at some of the first certification events, but they didn't need me to like do the day-to-day stuff anymore because they're training, hundreds of people to do that and spread the word and, spread the good word about the software. So, I literally was just kind of there at that time. It was like a timing thing, you know, which is also kind of really key for young people just coming up. It's like, you know, the right time. At that time, Ableton wasn't what it is now. You know, it was a great software program that people were using, but it wasn't like, you know, seen everywhere. People were still like, oh, Pro Tools is the industry standard, or Logic, or, you know, just everywhere I'd go, I'd try to talk about how awesome it was. And people would be like, oh no, like that's some child's play. Like that's some amateur stuff. Right. And, so literally I became certified, and yeah, I did, you know, get the Cirque du Soleil gig from that, but I don't really feel like, you know, young people ask me this, especially all the time, should I become certified? You know, it hasn't really like helped my career to get these gigs, right? Because they don't care if I'm certified, right? They don't care, you know, that's just a title. It's like, can you get in there and do the job? And, you know, do you have someone backing you up? Because that's the other thing, you know, with all these gigs, someone said, okay, she's good. Okay, she's good. Like brought me in. It's not like she's a certified trainer. Like we should bring her in. It's like she's done the gig. So, you know, I feel like people that want to be like educators and want to teach, for sure, like you should try to go for it, because, you know, that is what it means. It's like you are a certified educator. You are associated with Ableton that way. And of course, I still have a great relationship with Ableton because of the certification program, and, you know, work with them really closely. But I wouldn't say like anything that I've done necessarily has needed that, right? It's a great title. It's a great thing to have. It's a great, you know, relationship with the company. But if you're great and you're doing great things, you don't need a title, you know, people will see you and then they'll choose you.
We went into a little about COVID, and I know what a different year it was, so to speak.
Yeah.
How did, obviously live music events, complete stop. How did it affect your day to day? And, you know, what have you been doing in this time to stay creative, to keep pushing forward? Because I think everybody, I don't care who you are, was affected in some way. I'm curious to hear from your perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, at first it was like, what is going on? You know, it was literally like, I do playback for American Idol, and that happens in the spring. And, you know, I don't do a ton of touring stuff anymore. Like I have kind of like to be at home more and don't want to kind of live that day-to-day Groundhog Day lifestyle, even though it is fun. It's, you know, at a certain point I turned 40. I'm like, you know, like kind of want to be at home a little bit more, like have a, you know, wake up in my own bed kind of a situation. But so anyway, American Idol, started doing American Idol 2 years ago. And that's kind of been like my, you know, main gig, as well as the Grammys in town where I do the playback. And it was like the week before Idol was supposed to start. And all of a sudden we're like, this is happening. You know, I just spent like $30,000 on a new rig for Idol, and with all brand new equipment, you know, of my own money, because I thought I was going to make it back. And then we all know what happened. So it's honestly, after I wrapped my head around everything and kind of, you know, yeah, I had to lay off a lot of people at my company because like we're not doing shows anymore. Those people are tied to that. But I also, in a beautiful way, got to pivot to focus more on my personal brand and, you know, my education aspects. And so I've been working a lot with different brands, composing. I've been doing a lot of educational stuff, like brands or events will have me come and perform and do live stream stuff and talk about what I do. Yeah, it's been a lot about the Transmute Academy and like building my courses there and, you know, kind of getting people to come over there. We moved from Facebook. We had our community on Facebook, and now we've got my own, you know, community and its own thing, which feels really good. So I've been focused on, you know, building that, getting people to come over there, people learning, just working with different artists, you know, like I had been live streaming before the pandemic, and then all of a sudden this hit, and a lot of artists were like, oh my gosh, like, how do I do this? What do I do? How do I use OBS? How do I use loopback? How do I perform with Ableton Live? How do I do all this stuff from my home? Like, so literally the whole program just became about that. People were coming in, like, learning how to live stream. We had festivals, we all performed, my students performed. It's amazing. And and I've just have been, creating a lot more and just, working in my studio. So I honestly, I've been really, really happy. It's given me a chance to like breathe and chill and, not have some of that stress that I talked about earlier, and in the same kind of way, because it's a different model, it's a different model from the grind of the touring stuff. So, yeah.
Can I jump in real quick, Karen, and ask? Because I saw your mouth opening to ask the question. But I'm curious about your self-care routine, because there's this whole spirituality and deep sense of, positivity about you, about your music.
Thanks.
Where I know you had a break, and when you were in the hospital with tubes, but how do you maintain that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, so it really is just like a daily practice. And like, during this whole time, like, we're alone with ourselves, or most of us are. I mean, I've been alone, like I live by myself, and I've had a lot more time to like kind of connect with myself and like give myself things that were missing that I didn't know that I needed. And I mean, I think the main thing for me that I've realized, and I just like, it's so simple, and I just, I want to shout it from the rooftops, but it's like self-love. I know, it sounds a little corny. Like everyone says it all the time, but
no,
like,
that is so true. That is so true. I went through that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. You just get to a point.
Pandemic? Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, you just get to a certain point and like I was like, wow, like I'm just holding myself back. Like I'm, talking to myself like I would never talk to anyone else like this. Like why, And so just like, flipping that just like, bit by bit, and just do the whole like you talk to yourself, and it, it sounds a little nuts if you don't know what I'm talking about, but looking at yourself in a mirror, like telling yourself that you love yourself. So like all of that, I think, and I'm just now like coming to this place where I'm like, wow, like, okay, I do love myself. Like, this is awesome. I don't know if I truly did before, but now I do. And when you do, like, you feel like you could do anything almost, right? So, that's one thing. Also just like, yoga, meditation, cornerstones of my practice, like, I fell out of doing yoga for a little while and then got back into it during the pandemic. And it's just like, just really helps center me, as well as meditations or listening to affirmations, which I do a lot of as well, and like make my own. And, as a person that can record, and all the people that are listening, you can record yourself saying your own affirmations and listen to them. So that's a cool thing. Awesome. And just, I think just like community, being in like groups, like I just got done doing like a Zoom vocal group session, where we're just singing and it's beautiful, just like using your voice, like, just like my shirt, Madame Gandhi, shout out Madame Gandhi.
Oh, I love her.
Use your voice, like in whatever way, just like start to use it. So, those are kind of the things that I've been doing for my own self-care.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
I think that's been a thing for a lot of artists. For myself, I experienced a lot of that self-reflection, and just, because there's no one else. I mean, you're there. You have to face that person that you are. But in saying that, I think that this time also gave me perspective as to what I really wanted to do. So you do a lot of things. You have your own company now. You're a musician. You're an artist. What do you think is the main thing that you've learned through in this COVID time that it is what you really want to focus on?
For me, it's really just about expressing myself and helping others. And, the way that I do that is through my music and through the education aspects. So, like I said, I've been really happy, minus the initial kind of shock of everything. I've been, I've been thankful that I get to just work on expressing myself. I get to have the time to like be still, do the self-reflection, everything. And yeah, for me, it's just about creating, really. And whether that's content, whether that's music, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm just like making more things. I feel for a while I was like consuming a lot. And, I mentioned I invested in a lot of coaching, and, this past couple of years, it was a lot of like, how do I figure out how to make these businesses work, And now it's like, okay, well, what do I want in my personal brand, which has been my focus? How do I want that to go, And so that it's been really beautiful in a way, because it's like just really like coming back to me. And yes, I've got an amazing team and I've got amazing people around me, but it's like, what do I want? Like, what do I want right now in this moment? And that's just to create. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think you had a question around a little thing that Laura shared on social media.
Yeah, we want to know about your ambassadorship with She Said So for the Billboard Power 100 music list.
Yes.
How was that experience?
Congratulations, right? First of all.
Right.
Thank you. Yeah. So I was on the list in 2017. I've been friends with them for a long time, and yeah, they connected with me this year to be a judge for the new ambassadors. So it was just really such an honor to like go through this list and see incredible women that I know personally that I've worked with. I'm like, okay, yes. So yeah, just shout out to She Said So for, always pushing things forward and shining a light on the beautiful talent in our industry.
Yes. Shouts out to She Said So, doing great work.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
We have a lot of young aspiring creatives that are tuning in. What advice would you give to them, women music producers looking to find their in or their first next step, or whatever you want to call it? What advice would you give to them?
Make those connections, as best you can. Invest in yourself if you can, find ways, scholarships, like opportunities, there's just so many ways that you can network with people now online. And, I just really recommend just like getting into a program if you like it, like don't worry about how you're going to make the money back. 'Cause if you're on your path, like you will make it back, So like, just, I guess my main thing is, been investing in myself, surrounding myself with incredible people that support me and lift me up. It's really just, it's about the connections and, kind of being fearless in a way, like not playing small, just like going for it. If you see something, you go for it. Like for next year, I just invested in a mastermind with Aubrey Marcus, and I don't know if y'all know who he is, but definitely check him out. He's got this entrepreneur mastermind, and I was like, this is a lot. This is a lot of money. But I was also like, every year I've invested in myself and done something like this, and it's paid off. So I think there's different ways that you can do that wherever you're at in your career. If you're just starting out, there's like little smaller ways that you can do that. But yeah, just like being around good people. So obviously y'all have your platform here, and I'm just, super thankful that you are doing this, and, cause you're just really like giving a lot to the community. And so that's the first way, is just there's so many free things out there for you to just learn and absorb, just do that. And then don't put too much pressure on yourself to like figure it all out. Kind of like Josie was saying earlier, like there's no manual, like there's no, like, you do this and then you do this. It's like you do this and then you kind of go around and then you do that. Like I never even thought like playback or live show stuff was a job. Like I didn't know it was no one, that wasn't my dream in life to like do that. I had no idea that was doing a thing. So you just like find all these incredible things. And the main thing is like just help other people. like just give back. Because the more that you give back, like the more, a crew, you all as a crew or a group or whatever can rise up and then help each other and have each other's backs. And, I think that's super, important to remember, is just to give as much as you want to receive. Because, I think it's like Gary Vee, you give, and then you ask for something, you don't just ask for something. So, yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. That was awesome. Thank you so much, Laura. Now I'm going to throw up, we have something interesting for you.
I know. We do this thing with all of our guests, Laura. It's called our rapid fire round. Cool. And so I don't want you to think too much. I'm going to ask you a question. You have less than 30 seconds to answer it. And it's like whatever comes to your mind. Okay. Are you ready, Laura?
Okay. I'm ready.
Here we go. Bach or Mozart?
Bach.
What's your guilty pleasure?
Ice cream.
What kind?
Mint chocolate chip.
Wow, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
What is your go-to plugin?
Ooh. Recently it's been the Spitfire stuff. Been loving Spitfire.
Orchestral.
Yeah. Yes.
Awesome.
That's definitely where I'm at right now. Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
It's the vibe.
Oh, that's a great vibe. And I want to also throw it out to. I'm seeing all this gear behind you. Keyboard. What's your go-to keyboard back there?
So the top one back there, this way, is a sub. It's a Moog subsequent 37. Yeah. So
I always pronounce that wrong. It's Moog, not Moog. Moog. Okay, got it.
It's Moog. Yeah. Rhymes with rogue. Yeah.
Yes, got it. So what's your favorite piece in your studio right now?
Nope. Rapid fire. We gotta stick to rapid fire.
What's my favorite piece? I would have to say my new Hydrosynth. I just got it.
Oh wow!
A couple days ago. This is my new baby. It's MPE. It's oh my god, it's all the things. So
everything.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna keep it rapid, and Josie's gonna give me. What are you reading?
What am I reading? The one. It's about the one thing. Yeah. I'm like, what is the name of that book? It's about the one thing. The book is called The One Thing, where you find your one thing, kind of like you were asking me earlier, like what do you want to do? So yeah, The One Thing.
Who's the author? Really quick, because Josie's gonna get me.
Rapid fire.
Okay, we'll Google it on our own.
I'll look it up. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. The One Thing. Yeah. Yes.
And last one is who are you listening to at the moment?
Nils Fromm.
Let me write that down. How do you spell that?
Yeah.
What type of music is that?
It's kind of ambient, orchestral, electronic.
Okay.
Very cool.
Is what my sound is all about.
It's kind of your vibes.
Yeah.
Nils,
Yes.
Nills.
Nilsfrahm. Yeah.
Oh. Okay, I'm gonna that. Awesome.
Rapid fire done.
We're done.
That's the rapid fire. We have to do it faster. Thank you, Laura, for playing with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So cool. I love rapid fire.
Just before we wrap, we want to give you a moment. Please share with everyone what's next for Laura Escudé. Where can everyone find out more about you? Shout it all out.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Well, I'm mostly on Instagram, as most of us creators are, at Laura Escudé. Definitely check out the Transmute Academy. It's free to jump in. I've got a free course on Ableton Live 11 that I just released, which has got every single new feature in Live 11. So that's awesome. I've got also another free course called Envision Your Show if you're a creator who wants to perform and envision your show. A couple of other courses on there as well that you can purchase, as well as learn more about our programs in the new year and our guest artists that we've got coming in to speak. I just released a new single called Unlimited Expansiveness and a sample pack. It's on Bandcamp,
Yes.
so go support me if you can and use my samples and check them out. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Laura.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Gracias,
Thank you
gracias.
all so much.
Oh,
Appreciate it. Yes.
You know, we
Love
really-
your community. Love what you do. Think you rock. So thanks.
Oh.
Hey, before you go, click the red subscribe button down below and be the first in line to get our content. And you can also follow the Creator Suite movement on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.